We are talking about 2.3, converting between fractions and decimals. There's a couple terms that I want you to know. So pull out your red pen for me and go ahead and fill in the blanks on your notes. The first word we're going to talk about today is a terminating decimal. How many of you have ever heard of someone who might say, my job has been terminated? Okay, who could explain to me what you think that might mean for someone's job to be terminated? Very good. All of those things mean the job has ended for some reason, okay? It's been terminated. So a terminating decimal, just help that to remember, it's a decimal that ends. Notice my example, 4.75. It ended right there after the 5. There were no more numbers. Who can give me another example of another terminating decimal? All right, very good. 2.35. Who can give me another one? 6.75. All right, all of those are terminating decimals because they ended. The next one is a repeating decimal. Read me the definition for a repeating decimal. A decimal with one or more digits repeating. Read me what my example is. 1.363636. That could keep going on and on and on and on forever. Do you guys know an easier way to write something that keeps repeating? What do I do, Maddie?
You put a repeating bar over it.
Very good. So this would just be 1.36. And should I put that bar over the whole thing?
No, just 36.
Why just the 36?
Because that's the only part repeating.
You are correct. So now we're going to look at these three examples down here to help me understand whether these are terminating or repeating decimals. First one, Olivia, what does problem A say? 1.4. Is that terminating or repeating? That is terminating because it ended, so that is a terminating decimal. Problem B, Anais, what does it say?
5 plus 6, repeating bar.
Okay, so is this a terminating or a repeating decimal? That is repeating. Anytime that you see that little bar notation up there on the top, that helps us to know that is a repeating decimal. Boys, problem C, 6.53 with the line on top repeating. What kind of a decimal is this?
Repeating.
It is a repeating decimal. So it should be pretty simple for you to understand whether something is terminating, it ends, or if it's repeating and continues to go on. First section, write the fraction or mixed number as a decimal. So here I have a mixed number, -2 1/4. How would I turn that into an improper fraction? Connor?
4 times 2 plus 1 equals 9/4.
Okay, 9/4, and then is this a negative or a positive number? Okay, -9/4. Now I've got to figure out, remember when I have something as a fraction bar, does that mean I'm adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing the numbers? I am dividing the numbers because a fraction bar means to divide. So just remember my answer is going to end up negative because it has started negative, but we're going to go ahead and do 9. Whatever you have here on the numerator, you're going to put that underneath the division sign, 9 divided by 4. Now, something you're always going to do, you're going to give yourself a decimal point, and then just in our class, we're going to add 3 zeros. Sometimes you're going to need all the zeros. Sometimes you won't need all the zeros, but it's okay. So we're just going to put 3 to start off. What should I do with my decimal point now? Move it up. Let's bring it up to the top. And now we're just going to do our division problem like normal. 9 divided by 4?
2.
2 times 4? 9 minus 8? 1. Bring down the 0. How many times does 4 go into 10? 2 times. 2 times 4?
8.
10 minus 8? 2. Bring down the 0. How many times does 4 go into 20? 5 times. 5 times 4? 20 minus 0. Or sorry, minus 20. Okay, so now your whole goal is to get to a 0 down at the end because that means you're finished. So what's my answer? 2.25. But remember, if we go back to our original problem, it was a negative. So my answer still has to be negative. So the correct answer, if I am changing -2 1/4 to a decimal, is -2.25. Now, how many of you would say that just off the top of your head, you know what decimal 1/4 would be? What is it? 0.25. So if you knew that already, you could have just gone, okay, I've got -2, so I'll put a -2, and then you would know 1/4 is 0.25, and you can just find your answer that way. without doing all of this work. However, if you have not memorized some of these fractions, then you would not know that that was 0.25, okay? So the correct answer, either way, I do not care how you find it, should have been negative 2.25. Let's go over here to problem B. Is 5/11ths one of those fractions we've all memorized and we know exactly what decimal it is?
No.
No, it's not. So we're going to have to do the work exactly like we just did a minute ago. How do I do the work for 5/11ths? Maddie?
You put the 5 in the division box.
Okay, so this means 5 divided by 11. All right, I'm going to put my decimal point, and how many zeros will we put as a class?
3.
Let's put 3. 1, 2, 3. Bring the decimal point where? Up. Very good. Can an 11 go into a 5?
No.
Nope. Can it go into a 50? How many times? 4 times. 4 times 11?
44.
50 minus 44?
6.
Bring down the?
0.
Can an 11 go into a 60? How many times? 5 times. 5 times 11?
55.
55. 60 minus 55? 5. Can an 11 go into a 50? How many times?
4.
4 times. 4 times 11?
44.
44 minus makes it a 6. Okay, I don't have enough zeros, so I'm just going to give myself another 0, drop it down. Can an 11 go into a 60? How many times? 5 times. Guys, have you noticed any kind of a pattern? It is repeating. So instead of saying 0.45, 45, 45, 45, 45, and going on forever, what is our answer?
45.
So just off to the side, you're going to do that, and then go ahead and give it your little bar notation, and the correct answer is 0.45 repeating. All right, so typically you're going to want to go out, at least see that it's repeating twice, and then possibly sometimes you can go out just to make sure that it's repeating, go out 3 times. All right, we're going to move down to problem C. 1 and 5/27. What should I do to that mixed number first?
Multiply it by 27.
Okay, let's turn it into an improper fraction. So what would that be as an improper fraction? Very good, 32 over 27. Is that a positive or a negative?
Positive.
That is a positive. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead. You might want to write tiny on this one. Let's do 32 divided by 27. I'm going to put a decimal point. How many zeros?
3.
Okay, let's bring the decimal point up. Can a 27 go into a 32? How many times? 1 time. What is 32 minus 27?
5.
5. Can a 27 go into a 50?
No. Yes.
Yes, how many times? Only 1 time. 2 would be too big. So then you got to subtract. You get 23. Now I got to drop down another 0. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky, okay? We don't know our 27 times tables, so we're just going to kind of round to a number that is near the 27. What number is near the 27? Okay, a nice rounded number, something that's easy for us. A 30 is pretty simple, okay? A 25 is also near it if we were rounding down. Let's just start off with a 30 though, okay? Let's count by 30s until we get to around 230. Count with me. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, okay? Around 8. Let's just take a guess, and we'll put an 8 up there. 8 times 7 is 56. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 5 is 21. Looks like it might work out. All right, 10 minus 6 is 4. 2 minus 1 is 1. All right, and 14 is smaller than our 27 up here, so it does work out. Am I done? No, I'm not seeing a pattern yet that is showing me it's repeating, so I've got to just keep going, okay? Drop down another 0, okay? Once again, we're going to kind of round this number 27 up to a 30. Let's count by 30s until we get to around 140. Here we go. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. All right, let's start with that. 5 times 7 is 35. 10, 13. All right, so now we've got 5. Bring down another 0 because we still don't have a pattern. How many times can 27 go into a 50?
1.
1 time. Okay, I think we're going to have to add a few more zeros. What is 50 minus 27? 23, okay. Just start it here. I'm going to bring down another 0. How many times can 27 go into 230?
816.
She says 8. Why do you think 8 already?
Because it's repeating.
It is now repeating. She already noticed a pattern. Okay, we had done that 8 already, and then it was 216. When we subtracted it, we got 14, brought down another 0. Notice once again, a 5 can go into it. If we continued, now do you guys see a pattern? Okay, what is the correct answer?
1.185 repeating.
Okay, and which part was the repeating part?
1.85.
Just the 185. Okay, so you could continue to go on and on and on, and you will see 1.185, 185, 185, 185. So now that we are seeing that pattern, we can be done. Moving on to problem D. This one hopefully will not take us nearly as long. How do I find the answer to negative 6/5?
Make it a mixed number.
It's going to be 6, because you always take the top number, divided by the bottom number. Okay, so once again, just make sure always that top number gets tucked in underneath the division sign. How many times will I put, or how many zeros will I put?
3.
Okay. A 5 goes into a 6. 1 time. 1 times 5. Bring it down. How many times does 5 go into a 10?
2.
2 times. And what happens?
We're done.
We got to a 0, so what's my correct answer?
1.2.
1.2. Now go back to your original problem, and the original problem was a what kind of number? A negative, so what does my answer have to be? Negative 1.2, and then you can even box it right there on top. Okay, so that is how you find a fraction or a mixed number and turn it into a decimal. I want to remind you of some things that hopefully this is going to be a review to you, but talking about decimal place value. You can see this 2 right here. That's just in the ones place, normal old ones place. What place is this 4 in? Tenths. So notice, because I know that there are 4 of them there, I write it as if it was 4/10. Look at the 5. What place is that in? The hundredths, so I have 5 hundredths. The final one, 6, I have what? 6 thousandths. So for this next section that we're going to do, you have to make sure that you understand and you remember where the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths places are. For this section, it asks us to write the decimal as a fraction or a mixed number in simplest form. So let's just look at this right here. We know that the 0 is in the ones place. What place is the 2 in? The tenths, and what about that 6? Hundredths. So we can look at this and tell that this is negative. Now, you could put a 0 here, but for me, if it's a 0, I'm just going to let the 0 disappear. That means 26 hundredths, okay? And that's how you would write something like that. But it asks us to put it into simplest form. Is that in simplest form? No, and here's one way you can tell that. Because both of them end in an even number, a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, it can always at least be divided by a 2. So let's just go ahead and do this work. Show me that you are going to divide by 2 on top and on bottom. What is, and now we know the answer is a negative, what's 26 divided by 2? 13, and what's 100 divided by 2? 50. So what is our answer?
Negative 13 over 50.
Okay, is there anything else that can go into a 13 that can also go into a 50? No, and that's how you know that you are in simplest form. Let's go on to problem B. What's my whole number in negative 10.25?
10.
Not just 10, but negative 10. Okay, so we know we've got negative 10. Now I have this part right here, 0.25. What place is that 5 in? Hundredths. So then I know that that means 25 100ths. Can 25 hundredths be simplified at all?
Yes.
Yeah, you could divide by 25 on top and bottom, and what would you get?
1/4.
Okay, so my correct answer is negative 10 and 1/4. Now, how many of you, when you were here at the beginning, you saw 0.25 and you already knew that meant 1/4? If that was the case, then you do not have to show me all this extra work. If you have it memorized, just put the answer down. That is totally fine with me, okay? This is one area you do not have to show work. Let's go on to the next one. Dominic, what place is the 5 in on 0.125? The thousands place. So we know this is going to be 125 divided by or over 1,000. So 125 thousandths. Can that be simplified at all? Yes, it definitely can. Does anyone know what the biggest number is that can go into 125 that can also go into 1,000? What do you think?
25.
Our 25, okay. Anyone else have a different number bigger than that? 125, okay. That is the truth. 125 can go into both of these. So, what is 125 divided by 125? 1. Does anybody know what 1,000 divided by 125 is? Kalani? So guys, what's the number? 8. 1/8 is correct. All right, one final one that we've got today. 3.1. What places, you always look at the last digit, is the 0.1 in? The 10th place. So all you're going to do is first off rewrite your whole number, 3, and 0.1 means 1/10. So 3 and 1/10. That was a simple one because that cannot be simplified. On to the next one. It has asked us, the table shows the elevations of 4 sea creatures relative to sea level. Which of the sea creatures are deeper than the whale? Explain. It asks us to do something first. What does it ask us to do first?
Write each fraction or mixed number as a decimal.
We've got to change these things to a decimal. Are there any that you can see right here that are already in decimal form?
Whale.
The whale. So all we're going to do for the whale is just go ahead and bring it over here. 0.8. What about, is there any other one in here that you could just automatically figure out? Real simple. Maybe a fact or a fraction that we've already memorized in our heads before. Kaylee, which one? Okay, she says the anglerfish. What do you think negative 13 over 10 would be?
Negative 1.3.
Okay, negative 1.3. How did you figure that out?
Because you have
If you did not know that in your head like she did, all you would have to do is just go 13 divided by 10. As you work that out, then you would be able to figure out, okay, 0.000, and as it keeps going, then you're going to know that goes in there 3 times. And once you get to the 0, you're done. And remember, it was a negative, so negative 1.3, and that's how she got that. Was there anyone else who can say there is a fact there that you could easily figure out just by looking at it? What do you think?
The squid.
The squid, okay. Is 1/5 one of those facts right there that we should have memorized?
Yes.
Yes. What does 1/5 equal?
0.2.
0.2. So this is going to be negative 2.2. Okay, so really we just have the work now that we need to figure out for the shark, negative 2 divided by 11. So underneath your box, go ahead and do this work for me. All right, so remember the 2 will go first and then the 11 goes on the outside. As you're doing it, did you guys get your answer?
Yes.
What's the answer?
18 repeating.
Okay, so if you continue going on, whoop, that's correct. We do see a pattern there, okay? So the whole number for that would be a 0, okay? So I'm going to just go ahead and put it over here, 0.18 repeating. Now, just so we have all of them in the hundredths, I'm just going to add a 0 to the end to help us compare these numbers. So now we are not finished because that just helped us to figure out how to put them all in the same order with changing them to decimals. What is asked us is which of the sea creatures are deeper than the whale? So let's just imagine here we have a whale and many other animals. Are these animals above the water or below the water? Below, okay? They're inside the water, so they're below that sea level. What number would you say this sea level is at?
100.
0, okay? Because that always starts at a 0. Which one of these numbers over here is closest to 0?
18.
Okay, the negative 0.18. Which creature was that?
Shark.
Okay, that's the shark. Which other number is next closest to the 0?
Whale.
The whale. Okay, so we're at negative 0.80, and that's where the whale is at. Which creature comes next? Anglerfish at negative 1.3. And the final one is what?
Squid.
The squid at negative 2.2. Okay, now I am not finished yet because I've got to go back through. Remember, at the end of a modeling real life, I always want you guys to go back and look at the question to see what it's asking you. This says, which of the sea creatures are deeper than the whale? So you can see this is where the whale is. What is deeper than the whale?
Squid.
What else?
Anglerfish.
Okay, very good. So we've got 2 answers on this one. The anglerfish and the squid are deeper than the whale. And that's all the explanation that you need because we did all of this work right here. All right, let's go ahead and look at this next one. Write the fraction or the mixed number as a decimal. So this is just kind of going back to what we had talked about a little bit earlier. You want to do your 3 first and divide it by 16. I want you guys to try to do this on your own. All right, how many of you got the same thing that I did? 0.1875. Okay, I want you to try number 2. This will hopefully become one of those memorizing kind of problems, okay? Try number 2 on your own. Okay, what'd you guys get for that?
Negative 2.2.
Thank you for saying negative. Negative 2.2, because every time that you have a 1/5, it will always be 0.2. That's something you want to memorize if you don't already have it memorized. On to the next one. Write the decimal as a fraction or mixed number in simplest form. Negative 0.6. What place is my 6 in? The 10th. So I have negative 6 what? Tenths. Okay. Can that be simplified? Yep, I can divide by 2 on top and bottom, and what do I get?
Negative 3/5.
Negative 3/5. Now remember, you can either put the negative with the numerator or the denominator. It does not matter to me. I normally just stick it with the numerator. On to the last and final problem of the day. What place is my 8 in? The thousandths. So that means 408 thousandths. Once again, you could put a 0 right here, but there really is no point in doing that. So we're just kind of letting the 0 disappear. So just to figure this out the easiest way, can a 2 go into both of these numbers? Yes, it can, because they're both even numbers. A 2 can go into it. So let's just cut these in half. If I cut this in half, what's half of 408? 204. What is half of 1,000? 500. All right. Are these both still even numbers? Yes. So let's divide by 2 or cut in half again. What is half of 204? 102. What is half of 500?
250.
250. Looking at the end. Are they still even?
Yes.
Let's divide it again by 2. What's half of 102?
51.
51. What is half of 250? 125. Are these both still even numbers? No. So we know a 2 can't go into both of them. Is there any other number that can go into a 51 that can also go into a 125? No. Here's an interesting thing. She said a 3. Here is a fact of how you can figure out if it's divisible by 3. Add up the 2 numbers. What's 5 plus 1? 6. Can a 3 go into a 6? Yes. Okay, so let's try the denominator. 1 plus 2 plus 5 is what? 8. Can a 3 fit into an 8 evenly? No. So that means 125 is not divisible by 3. Therefore, your final answer is 51 125ths. so tonight's homework is 2.3, and please remember you only have to do 8 problems. That's what that 8 is there at the end.